I want to thank one of our incredible sponsors, BrainTap. You may have listened to our podcast with the founder of BrainTap, Patrick Porter. And if you did, you'll definitely want to get involved in BrainTap. And if you didn't, please, I strongly recommend that you go back and listen. It's so incredibly informative. Here's what BrainTap can do. You can literally build your brain fitness with BrainTap's mobile app and wearable headset. Everyone here at Comes The Sun podcast has had and continues to have positive results with BrainTap. Your brain is guided from awake and reactionary patterns to intuitive and creative responses. BrainTap is backed by neuroscience and research and was developed by Patrick Porter himself. BrainTap creates a symphony of brainwave activity to optimize your brain's potential, restore your ability, balance your energy, and calm your brain. And listen, it is a game changer when it comes to sleep. This technology is truly a gift, and I am so incredibly grateful to be able to share it with you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Out Comes the Sun podcast with my partner, Melissa Yamaguchi. We are going to have a discussion today because we love to talk. That's what girls do. We just love to talk.
And we're good at it.
And we're very good at it. And today, Melissa, it was great because we had a really interesting, we had a jam-packed week because I came into town, I think late Thursday, into LA, in case you don't know where in town means. And we've been going nonstop. And Friday, we had a really interesting, we did a podcast with our friend Jeremiah Higgins, who has the Jeremiah Show, which is a radio show. And we were at the Woodshed. And the Woodshed is a recording studio out in Malibu. And it is truly, and I know that you felt the same way, it is truly one of the most stunning locations for an artist to create, right? It was light filled. I mean, I've always done like audio. When you make a movie, you do audio stuff and you do some, dubbing or whatever, voiceover, and you're always in a super dark room all day long, black. It's blacked out, it's soundproof, which for sound is great. But that's what was so extraordinary about this Woodshed is that it was just, I don't know. I felt like we had entered a Japanese home. I don't know. I mean, it was craftsman, but there was something about it. The wood was just, everything was so perfect, beautiful.
Yeah, and the incorporation of the outside in with the design, very Frank Lloyd Wright-ish, right? Really placing the windows so that even though you were in the middle of this beautiful modern craftsman style home or studio, the windows were all around you, so you felt as though you were in nature. Even though, it was really stunning.
I agree with you. It was heaven, and the guy Richard Gibbs. I got that right? Yeah, Richard Gibbs, who was
not the lost brother,
not Andy's missing. Anyway, moving right along. He is producer, and he's had this studio for a really long time. He went through the fires in 2018 and almost. He lost his home, but they didn't lose his studio. And another interesting thing about that is that his wife had done this amazing planting around the studio area in a way that had prevented the studio from fire, which I found, I just found it fascinating. There were so many like wonderful kind of, I don't know that they completely meant to do it that way, but it was like there was this realization in having a conversation with him. I mean, they've had, Coldplay played there. Chris Martin actually was there early in the morning one day and woke them up because he was strumming on his guitar in the garden, and he was like annoyed, like who's strumming it, oh, that should be so bad that Chris Martin's in your garden, doing a ballad for you,
waking them up.
But they've had Pink took it over, Sting, U2, Oh yeah, U2, great story about U2, Lady Gaga. Anyway, a lot of really creative people. And I think why they fall in
Yeah.
love with it is because of that light. I think they don't even realize how profound and powerful that is. I mean, our show being about like mental wellness, light
Right.
is imperative. And I said that to him, and he was like, I mean, I think it was almost like, oh, right. I think, he took
Yeah.
claim for it, but I think that it was like a realization of, oh, wow. Yeah, because light is so incredibly important. And often artists will be in dark places. They go. Now, the
Yeah.
interesting thing is, it reminds me of my grandfather, Ernest Hemingway, who he used to say that he always watched a sunrise. I mean, I doubt that he saw every single sunrise, but he claimed to have seen a great many of them. And I have a feeling that that spurned or activated his creativity, because there's something about early morning light and light itself getting into the eyes
Yep.
that is soothing to the brain, good for you. My grandfather only wrote in the morning, in the early morning, after he saw sunrise or whatever, and then he would spend 4 hours at least early in the morning writing. And I think that information, especially because we're so concerned about like people and their well-being and addiction
Yep.
and mental health, to know the importance of this simple thing of light, getting light. I mean, even Andrew Huberman, who we both like as a scientist, talks about light and how imperative it is to mental wellness, your circadian rhythm. But because when you get
Mm-hmm.
morning light, it helps set the circadian rhythm so you sleep better at night. I just think it's
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. I don't know.
Well, and
Go ahead.
not only that, in addition to the light, which is so vital, uh, for all the reasons you said, even if it were an overcast,
Yeah.
cloudy day, having exposure to the outside world and not feeling so confined, and even though as an artist, whether it be through recitation of your lines or whether it be through memorization of your song and playing it, there's got to be something about the freedom of being able to see. They show that even in prison, with those that are locked up, if they have access to a window or to see life outside beyond their confinement of their walls, it somehow offers them hope.
Yes.
But that solitary confinement with no window, no light, they start to decline rapidly, right? Because you don't have this offering of hope, of possibility of life beyond what you're experiencing right here. So I think that same realization must come from those who are locked into this studio, even though they know they're getting out.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Just to stand there and be able to see, I'm more than just this. I am a part of the world. I think it would inspire
I
you
think so too.
to. I mean, and his studio in
Oh,
particular. I mean, not only is it gorgeous because of the environment, you're overlooking the
yeah.
Pacific Ocean, so you literally are communing with
Yep.
nature, and you are realizing that you are but a drop in that ocean.
Yep.
That makes it continue to ebb and flow, and it's really
Oh,
cool. I'll tell you something that I took from there besides all this great stuff. His floors, I don't know if you saw, this is a sidestep here, but his floors in the traditional Japanese home style, craftsman style, had little levers on that you could lift up the panels of the floor that would open up. And in it, everything would tuck away. And so they could hide all of the recording, wiring, and
yes.
cabling. And in a matter of 10 to 15 minutes, lift up panels, shove everything down, put things behind walls. And it would be one huge, massive room in case they needed to shoot a whole band coming in or dance
Right.
for a video. And I thought,
So clever.
I mean, I must remove floor at home so when companies come, you can just show.
Oh, I
everything.
know. I mean,
it was fascinating.
I mean, there is that always. It's like, where do my cords go? And it's like, how do I tuck them under the carpet and all that stuff? I mean, it was amazing. And did you notice that the speakers, they were like pieces of art. They had these handles on them that were so beautiful, and they were modular. You could take a piece of the speaker off, but they were kind of but they looked like great kind of movable bookshelves. I don't know. I love.
They look like tansu. They look like Japanese tansu furniture
Yeah,
pieces that you can coordinate.
It is stunning. And it was so great. And then, they do, what's their charity called? I'm having a brain fade. Help me.
I got it up here because I want to talk about. I'm glad you said that because it's the actual physical name of it. Let me make sure I don't slaughter it even. It's the Armory of Harmony.
Oh my God.
The Armory of Harmony.
How about that?
Yeah, super cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, we're going to put a link on our site
Sure.
here. It's so what they've got here. One of the things they quote on here is Plato. Music gives a soul to the universe. So they said it's octoconic. Instead of 8 notes in a scale, there are 8 steps to make an instrument of peace. We start by working with established buyback programs and police departments to collect unwanted and decommissioned weapons from around the country. We shred and then we smelt them into raw ingots. Then we refine the ingots to production quality bars and work with our manufacturing partners to utilize the metal to make and brand musical instruments for high school and college marching bands and ensembles. Each item is stamped with the Armory of Harmony logo. We've carefully tracked and documented the metal as it gets a new lease on life.
That just took my breath away. I was just like, what?
I mean, I'm mad I didn't think of it.
It's so smart. It's so
just
smart.
The coolest thing ever.
I mean, to me, the alchemy of turning a weapon into a musical instrument is just, there's something so magical about that, and he was very clear to say it was not a political statement. He's not saying, no guns, whatever.
Not pro or anti anything.
He was just saying, look, these things go somewhere. And what do you do with them?
Right.
And, they're decommissioned and nobody uses them again. And what do you do with them? And to turn it into an instrument is it was the coolest thing I heard in a long, I agree.
A long time, since the 60s.
Like, really?
Remember when the girl put the flower at the end of the gun barrel? Remember that one scene, the iconic scene? It made me think of that instantly, like taking this instrument that's renowned for instilling fear, also protection for those who have them, however you visualize it, but to create some beauty and art from it. It's fascinating. I mean, I've seen people in the past who've taken pieces of metal from war, whether something was destroyed in their community, and created art from it that you can hang on your wall, or sculptures and so forth. This takes us to a whole new level.
It is so great. So we were just like, this is so cool. So, when eventually our site is more fleshed out and we have more, links to other, places that are doing great work, we will have a link to them. Because it's just, and we just want people to know that there are cool things out there. There's a way to make a difference in the world for artists, for your friends, for your children, for all these things. And it's not, that's, I guess I bring it up just to say the mission behind, Mariel Hemingway Foundation is just to give people that information. Where do I go if I want holistic health? Where do I go if I want, if I need a therapist? Where do I go? Not that we're that. We're just saying, hey, if you're in St. Louis, Missouri, you can find this there, and that's there's a beauty in that. And then today I met with a really interesting guy, that is doing, he is a producer. He's also manages, what's his name? Oh God, I don't. Yoshiki. Okay, very well known in Japan, like huge in Japan, huge, and such. He was so interested, and they have a foundation for mental health because Yoshiki has lost. I think he lost his father. His father took his life, and some of his band members had taken their lives, and he actually talks about, I guess, on stage, his mental health struggles, which, I applaud anybody who's in the arts, who's very, very well known, in this country, in another country, in Europe, and wherever, and talks about their own struggles with it. So we're also gonna do something with them. We're gonna, link to them with our foundation so that you can find information that they're doing. But that's what it takes. It takes being able to build this out and be this network of information.
Yes.
And I just, it always comes to, I just think that there's so many people out there kind of struggling, thinking they're by themselves and don't know where to turn. It's just crazy to me.
And the one thing that I love about what we just shared with Armory of Harmony is that if you're a school teacher, and we all know the benefit that music brings to those that are suffering from depression or anxiety. And if you're a school teacher and you're thinking, I've got some students, and I want to get them involved. What can I do to help them? If the Armory of Harmony is offering the musical instruments to kids in high school and college and the ensembles, oftentimes when they can't afford it themselves. But music is a great release. And so knowing what I love about what we're offering with Mariel Hemingway Foundation is even if you think, well, I don't really think that I have depression or anxiety, but I'm a school teacher and I'm around students who are struggling. Where can I turn for resources so that I can help guide my people? So it's not just, and so I was talking to a friend of mine who's in nursing, and she said, well, a lot of the nurses that I work with, Melissa, we're on split shifts and we have a great support system and we get together and none of us, knock on wood, really have issues. And I said,
what?
That's fantastic. That's huge. But our foundation and our sources are not going to be only for those that are afflicted. It's going to be for every single living person. Every parent should be able to get on there and say, what should I do? My daughter's away at college and she's struggling a little bit. What can I do for her? This is not just for those in pain. We're not a hospital. It is a resource. It's as though you walked into the library and you were trying to find the latest book on whatever it was. So I that information we have to get out there more forthright. Also, I think letting them know that we're a source for everybody to look at.
Absolutely.
Even if you're in a perfectly great state, you still want to know what's out there to help you get stronger.
Absolutely.
You and I spoke with the guy out of Japan.
Yes.
Saturday.
Right. Gosh, I forgot about that. And he was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, we've just been like, and one of the things that he shared with you and me is that he shared some of the struggles they're having in this country, being behind. And we were talking about the cultural stigma of whatever it is, whether it's a disease, an ailment, whether it's physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. Oftentimes people won't stand up and say, I'm having an issue, because they're fearful of the stigma that it would bring to their family or to themselves, or culturally it's looked down upon. And so that's another thing that we know. I know that we've talked about really having this resource, because it can be anonymous. You can get on there and really just seek and search for yourself. And truly, if someone were to trace back your search on Mariel Hemingway Foundation, everything on there is so beautiful and beautifully, everything we're presenting, we're going to be sharing is so composed and so insightful that you can't be, I guess your feet can't be held to the fire.
Right. Well,
there's an anonymity to
everybody should always feel as though they're safe. They're safe to share.
Yes.
They're safe to move forward. Nobody's leaking information or whatever. Because Mike Rogers is who we spoke to in Tokyo, who has this big radio show. And that was interesting, the whole cultural thing, because being such an American, I mean, you're married to somebody who's Japanese. So you have more of an understanding of that. There's a cultural difference with how people handle the dogs in the background. Are really not nice. Anyway, I'm so sorry.
Well, you know what? Everybody's got something to say.
They're a little old, and I think they're barking at absolutely nothing. Daisy's just looking like, what's up? Anyway, I found it fascinating because culturally, in Japan, and he was really saying they were way behind, because they do, there's shame involved, especially, and it's kind of like we were 20 years ago. There was far more embarrassment and shame. There still is, but people are talking about it more because we're losing a lot of people. We're losing a lot of people to suicide, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because it's unnecessary. So, and because I'm going to Florida in a week I'll be going a week from Friday. I'll be going to Florida and speaking for the JFS agency, and it's a Jewish family services agency, and they have an amazing wealth of stuff they do, not just for Jewish families, but that's what they're called, but in their area, that help people with suicide, mental health, addiction, all of these different things. And I want people to know that there's all kinds of agencies or foundations or charities or places that are really doing some extraordinary work that is helping people. And I've seen it firsthand. I always get a tour of different places, and so I get very happy to know that I'm not the only person that thinks lifestyle matters, right? Because I've been to you know what I mean?
That's exactly
I've been
right.
to places. Yeah.
And by the way, the guy from Japan was intrigued by your whole approach to lifestyle, and he said that even though a lot of it is spoken about in their culture, there needs to be more exposure. And so, which is such a dichotomy, Mariel, because I've been studying this whole understanding of aging as it relates to each country. And Japan is one of the forerunners outside of Greece, but how they approach the elderly. And let me tell you, first of all, they're having an issue in Japan. While we're talking about Japan a little bit longer, they're having an issue in Japan because there's not as many people being born, and there's a huge population of the elderly. So, but their approach to the elderly, maybe out of necessity, is they treat the elderly like they're rock stars.
That.
There's like, woohoo, you made it. You're 88. You're killing it. We're not killing it, maybe. You're rocking it out, You're amazing. Instead of like, oh, my dear, you're 85. Does your back hurt? Do your knees hurt? It's kind of like, you're 88. You're still walking every day. You're amazing. They celebrate them.
Yeah, and don't you say it should be that way. We don't, and we used to.
Well,
we used to have a family unit. I really think that's the degradation of kind of our mental state, is that we've lost the family unit in this country, especially. We kind of somebody moves to this part of the country and that part of the country, and we used to always stay together. I mean,
our clan was always stuck, and in Japan, by us, whether by osmosis of this behavior towards the elderly, men well into their 90s have stronger virility. When women start to go through menopause, their symptoms are not really as extreme because it's celebrated. The transition is celebrated, so everything is somewhat minimized in the pain. Now, you juxtapose that with what our interviewer was telling us on Saturday, that they're really behind in a lot of areas. So one area is wildly celebrated, the aging process, and then one area is there's the ribbons of shame, and like, do not bring this to the forefront. So, here's to the
absolutely, because it's kind of interesting. How is it that a culture so smart about the wisdom of the age could but when you look historically at that kind of culture, being stoicism and being, strong and showing up, not show emotion and all that stuff. So there's a balance. I mean, we probably over show in this country. I think that we're a little excited, little
reality TV never hurt anybody.
It's this balance and really understand there's no shame, because the brain doing something out of balance just means that the brain needs some help, and that's okay.
That's exactly right.
And sometimes the body helps the brain, right? It's that connection. And
well, I think there's some. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just there's something to be said about our approach to. Well, not something to be said. That's too ambiguous. Let me define it more here. There's a story that I read recently about a doctor who knew that she was going to be leaving. She got the approval to leave the country to work on her doctorate. And precisely in the study, the field of aging and mental health as it relates to aging. And so she went to visit her grandmother in the state of Florida, who's an 88-year-old woman who golfed every day, who had a very fast walk, who was really active. And every night, come hook or crook, was in that backyard watering her avocado trees herself. And so when the granddaughter showed up at her grandmother's doorstep, she said, I can tell you've been working on your dissertation. You look like you need vitamins. Let's go to the store. Well, her grandmother's vitamins were oranges and grapefruits. So they go to the grocery store. Grandma takes off, and the granddaughter can barely keep up with her. And when she finally catches up to her, Grandma had turned the corner and run into an orange crate, a wooden orange crate that had been left on the ground. And dug in the crate, gashed her shin. She fell on the ground. There was a lot of blood. The granddaughter was very freaked out. The grandmother was joking, you should have seen the other guy. Everything seemed to be fine. As they're walking out, Grandma, who has my heart in her hand by doing this, stopped the manager and said, you really need to do something about those crates on the ground. People can get hurt. The young whippersnapper, who was flipping through some kind of a trade magazine or rag magazine, looked up and said, can't you get somebody to do the shopping for you? People like you shouldn't be walking around.
Yeah.
Something to that. I'm playing with words, something to that extent. The granddaughter then noticed that night that the grandmother, who's so vital and strong, and asked the granddaughter to go water the avocado trees. First time ever in her life. She'd never seen any that chore handed off to anybody else. And then secondly, the next day, the granddaughter said, I want to take you to the doctor to make sure that cut doesn't get infected. She said, will you drive? She said, is your leg hurting? Because it wasn't the pedal, it wasn't the right leg. And she said, I just don't know if I can. And so the granddaughter incorporated into her study the mental wellness that was affiliated with the stigma. You're old, you're not useful, have somebody else do the work, you shouldn't be doing. And so she said, how is it possible? In less than 3 hours time, some guy who my grandmother had never met in her life could say one thing and change her. She said, it took me, I put off my departure and I stayed on my grandmother and I got her back to where she was. We went for our walks and got her spirit back up. She said, I began thinking, what are we doing to people? One small thing, a woman says, I just had the baby. I don't know. I'm scared to be around the baby. And the husband or their mother-in-law or their mother or the neighbor says, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy? This is your child.
Yeah.
Right? So the responsibility we have in
absolutely
the way we speak
the
to
trauma
people.
think about your childhood. I think that you had a pretty amazing childhood for the most part, and you were pretty outspoken. But I remember as a child, I can remember the couple of times that another kid would say something. I got bullied a bit as a kid, and also had some teachers that were pretty rough that said some demeaning things that made me feel small, and they traumatized me forever. Like it took a long time before I was able to really get past that, because those words, sometimes in the right energy, I don't know, you could speak to that more, will come at you and they damage you. Think of that older woman. She was fine before she was told.
She was fine.
That, somebody like you, that all of a sudden, whatever happened, and all of her vitality was it was like he stole her power. It's really, we do have to watch how we speak. We do.
We're hard enough on ourselves. I don't care how strong we are, because I pride myself in being pretty ding dang strong. And you're my best friend. I've even gone through some things where I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what's going on in my head? What narrative have I picked up that doesn't resonate with my being? So if someone like me, who, and I'm not the Xena, the princess warrior over here or anything, but if I pride myself on being pretty strong, my spine is pretty firm, and I'm not saying if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. I'm just saying I recognize, wow, in a matter of like an hour, I felt funky, man. I felt funkadelic, and I was really trying to really ramp myself up. I was like the little engine that could, trying to get myself to just go up that hill. And it took all of my remembrance of our conversations, my knowledge of what I've learned through study of health and wellness, and what I've learned, listen to you talk to me about things, me pulling and also, my mom, my grandmothers, and my dad, all the stories. I had to really dig deep back in and pull it forward. Like, Melissa, you know better. do not. But, you know, we not only do we have responsibility to others, if we're a teacher and a fireman and we're out dealing in the public, or we're, you know, a cashier, we have responsibility to ourselves and to others as
Yes.
human beings. I mean, we're walking.
Yeah.
This is a tenuous thread. There was an article that came out recently that said, my son, who is, you know, the scientist of the family, said to me, the key word here is maybe. Okay, maybe. The Earth's core may be reversing order. If it was running counterclockwise, it may be reversing order. So if that metal ball at the core of our planet, if it was running in clockwise direction, now if it's running counter, this isn't some esoteric. This is a vibrational shift that
Well,
all
I
of us
think
are
we
aware
get,
of.
yeah.
This walk on our planet
And
is
I
so
think we
tenuous.
can all attest to the fact that not just because we're getting older, but life is going faster. I think that there is
It
like
is.
everybody kind of it's noticeably different. I mean, things are moving faster. Yes, we're
Yes.
not kids. I mean, kids moving slow because you're a kid and you can't wait for summer to start. But that element of like just feeling as though time has shifted. It has shifted. And, you know, I don't know, you know, the scientific reasons for that, but I think there's definitely change. And as humans, I think we adapt to change in that way. I don't know. This is another great conversation, and we've reached our time, but I love this conversation. I love talking about things in regard to everybody out there who, you know, I don't know. I just feel like everybody needs to be heard and everybody needs to be honored. I love the fact that we're going to honor everybody older in our lives, because someday I'm going to be there, and probably sooner
Especially this year.
than I'd like.
It's important this year. For the year of the rabbit, that's a little caveat I was going to share with you last time and forgot, and I realized as we're talking about this, I should plug it in here. The year of the rabbit, we really should look to our elderly. Yes, we continue to praise each other and our children, but the elderly really need to be given their voice back. And this year, the rabbit honors that more than any other time. So let's use that as an excuse to do it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. We are so grateful to have you here every week with us, and we're really trucking. We've got, I don't know how many this is, but we're hanging in there and we're loving it.
5,022.
I love it. Time's flying
Time's
by.
flying by.
I love this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Out Comes the Sun podcast. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Slater. Thank you to all of the people that are listening. We love you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Out Comes the Sun. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, on Apple, and on YouTube. And you can donate to the Mariel Hemingway Foundation at the marielhemingwayfoundation.org. And I want to spell Hemingway for you, HEMINGWAY.org. I only say that because a lot of people put two M's, and that just won't work. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the donate button at the bottom and it will take you right to a link with the QR code. And if you go to marielhemingway.org, you can also press the donate button and be able to donate to the foundation, which is designed to help guide people towards finding the right solutions for their mental health issues. That is my goal. I'm just trying to raise money so I can come up with an app and a website that has all the information you could possibly want to know about mental health and where to go. But we are in the process of making that happen, and your donation means so much to us. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.